Welcome back to Dalet Amot Shel Halacha. Elo LaKadosh Baruch Hu Be'olamo. Ela Arba Amot Shel Halacha Belvad. All Hashem has in this world, ever since the Beit HaMikdash was destroyed, all He has in this world is the people that sit and learn Torah in their 4 Amot of halachic space. Rabotai, really quick, a small review from what we saw yesterday. Halacha number 1, what we saw yesterday in part 2 of the Shi'ur, was that a person is allowed to begin his third meal right before sunset, and we're going to give him the permission to allow to eat it even after nightfall, and we don't have to be afraid for the stringent opinions that say that if you're beginning before sunset, that's not enough. You also have to begin a few minutes before sunset. We saw yesterday in part 2, we don't have to be afraid for those reasons. Halacha number 2, we saw that the Mishnah Berurah brought down the name of the Magen Avraham, that if a person davened Arvit after Plag Mincha, even though it's still day outside, the person that davens Arvit after Plag Mincha in a permissible way, we're going to tell him he loses the only Shabbat, he could no longer eat or drink anything except water, of course, until Shabbat comes out and he does Havdalah on a cup of wine. So we're going to continue back in today's Shi'ur. We are in Siman Reish Tzadik Tet. That is Siman 299 in Halacha Aleph, on page 148 in Rabbi Dahan Sefer Mishnah Berurah Amudei Hora'ah. We're going to continue where we left off yesterday with the Sha'ar Tzion. I read the Sha'ar Tzion yesterday, but I told you that it's going to take us somewhere else. It's going to speak about something else completely. So I did not want to mix it up with yesterday's Halacha, so I left it out. So let's try to do it now. Be'ezrat Hashem Bili Neder. So we saw yesterday in the opinion of the Magen Avraham that if a person davens Arvit after Plag Mincha, he's no longer allowed to eat or drink. Okay, from now on when I say he's no longer allowed to eat or drink, understand, he's not allowed to drink anything except water, okay? So the Sha'ar Tzion in Odhei says, Va'afim hivdil b'tefillah asur. Even if he did Havdalah in the tefillah, it is forbidden for him to eat or drink anything until he does Havdalah on the cup of wine. The Havdalah that a person can do in tefillah works very simply. We have in the Shemon Esrei Bracha of Arvit, so the Sha'ar Tzion is bringing down this right here. Over here we have Ata chonen la'adam da'at, right? Ata chonen la'adam da'at u'malabed la'enush bino. Then we have this small paragraph right over here. I hope you guys can see it. Ata chonen tanu. This is called Havdalah and Tefillah. This type of Havdalah over here, as we'll see, allows us to do work. Bezrat Hashem b'li neder, Rabotai, we'll see all these halachot as we go along. So basically, if a person said Ata chonen tanu, if he did Havdalah in Shemon Esrei, you would have thought you're going to be allowed to eat. Comes the Sha'ar Tzion, and the Sha'ar Tzion says, in the name of the Magen Avraham, Va'afim hivdil b'tefillah asur, that even if a person went ahead and he did Havdalah in his prayer of Arvit, which is after Plag Mincha, still is going to be asur for him to eat or drink anything until he does Havdalah in a cup of wine. V'kidemucha b'Pesachim daf kuf zayin, like it's brought down Masech Pesachim, page 107. V'zehu l'dat Magen Avraham. This is in according with the opinion of the Magen Avraham. Aval b'Prima Gadim. Here we go. However, the Prima Gadim katav, he wrote, she'en dino mukhrach. This law of the Magen Avraham, you're not forced to learn that that's a law. Meaning, when the Magen Avraham tells you that if a person davened Arvit after Plag Mincha, and you are no longer allowed to eat because now your only Shabbat is gone because you're already done with Arvit, he says, I'm not forced to learn like that. We'll see why. Because he says, the lo damili kiddush. You can't compare this to kiddush. Why? The ayi de hagbalah hu Shabbat. Because if a person wanted to accept upon himself Shabbat after Plag Mincha, he's allowed to do it. He could do whatever he wants, but it has to be after Plag Mincha. Now let's just try to have something clear. Plag Mincha is an hour and 12 minutes before nightfall. So if we're going to stick to our times, what we've been speaking about yesterday, If 6:15 is night, that means Plaga Mincha is going to be 5 o'clock. Just go back an hour and 15 minutes. Just round off the numbers to make it easier. So if 5 o'clock is Plaga Mincha, I'm allowed to daven Arvit. I'm allowed to accept Shabbat. I'm allowed to do a lot of things. So over here, the Pri Megadim is saying that the Lo Damil Kiddush, you can't compare this to Kiddush. Why? The Aydak Balahu Shabbat, because when he went ahead and he accepted Shabbat upon himself after Plaga Mincha, after the 5 o'clock mark, now he's forbidden to do any form of work. Why? Because the day became sanctified by him. Because right now, it's Shabbat by him. What do you mean it's Shabbat? But it's only 5 o'clock during the day. You're right. For you, since you accept Shabbat, for you it's Shabbat even though it's 5 o'clock. For other people, it's not going to be Shabbat until 6 o'clock, until sun sets. Therefore, Chal Chovat Kiddush. That's what he wants to say over there. The reason why he's not allowed to eat, because since Shabbat already came in, now he has to go ahead and do the Kiddush, and that's why he's not allowed to eat, because it's really Shabbat by him. But this is not the case by the Havdalah. When you compare and contrast Havdalah to Kiddush, they're not the same laws. Why? Because the Adan Lav Chol Hu Shum Davar. Because it's not a regular day to any situation, to any matter. Meaning like this, when a person went ahead right now and he davened on Shabbat, not Friday night, on Saturday, after 5 p.m., which is Plaga Mincha, he went and he davened Arvit. By me davening Arvit and instituting Atachon Otanu, the Havdalah, into my prayer, tell me, is it for me right now a regular day? Can I go drive a car? Can I do anything? Absolutely not. It's still a day of sanctity. It's still a holy day. Because remember, if we're going to I'm going to tell you like this. Whenever you want to know how to calculate the Zmanim for Shabbat, it's very simple. Whenever Shabbat comes out, according to the Geonim, it's 1 hour after candle lighting. According to Rabbeinu Tam, it's an hour and a half after candle lighting. So basically, if let's say sunset is going to be, say 6 o'clock, we're going to have to go back 18 minutes because that's when the candle lighting is. They always go back 18 minutes. So let's say around 5:42. 5:42, a person has to light candles. That means Shabbat comes out the following day at 6:42, and so on and so forth. And if you want to add Rabbeinu Tam, you add 30 more minutes of Rabbeinu Tam, and that's when Shabbat's going to come out. So an hour and a half after the candle lighting according to Rabbeinu Tam. An hour according to the Geonim. So now you have over here a very big problem. Comes the Pri Megadim and he says, I don't understand. If this guy davened after 5 o'clock, which was Plaga Mincha, is it Shabbat or is it a regular day? Pashut, it's Shabbat. You can't do anything. Shabbat does not come out till 6:42. So what? You decided to daven Arvit because for whatever reason you had to daven Arvit. There is a permissible way where you're able to daven, like we saw yesterday. Which Siman? 1 second, guys. Yes, Reishat Gimel. That there is a permissible way in Siman 293 where a person is able to daven even on Shabbat after Plaga Mincha. Now, Rabotai, what are we coming up against? What are we coming up against? We have over here a very big dilemma. You cannot compare Kiddush and Havdalah. You cannot compare two and two. Why? Because over here, by Kiddush, when a person accepts upon himself Shabbat, it's Shabbat. It's not a regular day. You cannot work. Since I cannot do nothing, since there is a change in the day, so good, you cannot eat. But when you compare Kiddush to Havdalah, when a person does Havdalah in Arvit prayer by saying Atachon Otanu, is there a change in the day? There's no change in the day. Because you still cannot work. There's nothing changed. So if nothing changed, the Pri Megadim wants to say, so why isn't he allowed to eat? It's still Shabbat, no? So that's why the Pri Megadim is not happy. The Pri Megadim is not happy with the fact that Magen Avraham said that if a person davened Arvit after Plaga Mincha, it's asur for him to eat anything until he does Havdalah on a cup of wine. He says, I don't like it. You can't compare Havdalah to Kiddush. Kiddush I could understand because there's a real change in the day. But really there's no change. I still cannot do no work. So why shouldn't I be allowed to eat? It's still Shabbat by me. Rabotai, So I had to ask a very big posek. I believe he's also, I think is he, I believe he's also Dayan. I hope so. I will ask him again. He's in our shul of House of Torah. His name is Rabbi David Harav David Davidov. That's his name. He comes from Israel, Rabotai. He's in House of Torah. He teaches people halachot. He's very, very well versed in halachot. So I asked him, I said, listen, we have over here a very big dilemma. I was trying to find this place. I was trying to find, can we be lenient like the Pri Megadim? A person with a head and he davened, Aravit, after Plag Mincha, can he be lenient like the Pri Megadim? So I asked Rabbi David, I said, Kvod Rav, what do we do over here in this situation? Yes, I understand the Magen Avraham is Machmir, but we have Onik Shabbat over here. And I'm not doing any malach like the Pri Megadim wants to say. So the rabbi told me we followed the Mishnah Berurah in this halacha. Again, Rabotai, yes, I should have asked him, but if he says something, I should have asked him where the source is. He says he remembers seeing them, that the Sephardic poskim go with this Mishnah Berurah, and they're not going to be lenient like the Pri Megadim. Not only that, he says, the Shartiyun says, meaning that's the Chavetz Chaim, V'ayim b'teshuat binyan olam b'siman zayin, look into the Sefer in the Teshuat binyan olam in Siman zayin, והובא בפתחי תשובה החדש, is brought down in the new פתחי תשובה, גם לעניין קידוש הוא מסתפק. Even when it comes to Kiddush, he's also going to have a suffix. Meaning, for Friday night, over there maybe you could also eat. So Rabotai, this is where, as you can see, where are we right now heading? Harav HaGaon Rav Lior Dahan Shlita over here has an Od Hey. If you guys can see in the Amudei, in the Shartin, has Od Hey. If we're going to look into his Amudei Hora'ah in Od Hey, he says, Ein Siman Reish Ein Aleph, Amudei Hora'ah, Od Yud Aleph, Ve'ein Kan Makom Laharich. Rav Dahan says you have to go look into Siman Reish Ein Aleph, that's Siman 271, and look into my Amudei Hora'ah over there in Od Yud Aleph. This is not the place to lengthen on this halacha right now. Now you guys can understand why I couldn't do this yesterday. So that's what we have to do. We have to go look at what, because we have to understand. Really what we want to see right now, halacha is halacha. The halacha is going to stay like the Mishnah Berurah, like the Magen Avraham. The halacha is going to be like the Magen Avraham, that if a person davened Aravit after Plag Mincha, he's not allowed to eat anything or drink anything until he does Havdalah on Motzei Shabbat and a cup of wine. And doing Havdalah and Tefillah does not help you. But right now we want to see something else. When the Pri Megadim says over here that a person went ahead and he accepted upon himself Shabbat after Plag Mincha, the Pri Megadim says over here, it's also for you to do malacha. You're not allowed to do any more work because they became sanctified by you. That's why the obligation of Kiddush fell on you. That's why it's also for you to eat. Let's see what Chacham Ovadia has to say on this and what other poskim have to say on this. And this is what we really want to see. Rabotai, I just want to say something just now before we continue. This is the beauty of learning halacha in depth. Bi'iyun. This is called amelis. You understanding the halacha. And believe me, Rabotai, when you will close the book, as much as it's important to do chazara, it's going to be very hard to forget these halachot. Why? I'm not telling you not to chazara. It's a person needs to do chazara. Every 30 days you should review the halachot. And you'll see how it's going to be very fluent by you. But why, Rabotai? Why isn't the person going to forget? Because Rabbi Wolkin Shlita, the father, used to teach me, when you do something thoroughly, he says it stays by you. He's not telling you potter from Chazara. Because when people don't review, they forget. But still, he says, but when you learn something good one time, it's easier the second time. And do you know the difference between a person that sits and learns from another rabbi versus a person that sits and learns from a rabbi where he's able to write and take notes and able to see the words inside and able to define the words? The difference is going to be, next time you have to look up this halacha, you'll be able to look it up by yourself. Those people that just learn and listen to, which is nice, I'm not taking nothing away, I'm just comparing and contrasting. A person that sits and just listens to the rabbi, tomorrow when he has to learn this halacha again inside, he has to go back and listen to that rabbi. So next year, if the rabbi is going to do the shiur, he has to go back and sit next to him to do that halacha. But had he learned it the first time the proper way, in depth with understanding it, right, defining and so on and so forth, taking notes, next year he could already do this halacha by himself, and he does not need the rabbi to sit there and educate him. He could already move forward, Rabotai. Very, very big difference. Very big difference. Okay. In any event, let's get to work. In Siman Reish Ein Aleph. That will be in page. No, Michal. Siman Reish Lamed Aleph. No, Reish. What did I say? What did we say? Let's say Michal. Where Rabbi had done throws. Reish Ein Aleph. Correct. Reish Ein Aleph. Oh, it's here. All right, take this book. Oh, this is Reish Lamed. There's something else. Apologize. That is something else altogether completely. Reish Ein Aleph. If we look into Reish Ein Aleph, it's still in Chelek Gimel. I apologize. I don't know why I took that book. I was actually looking something up, something else. In Reish Ein Aleph in Halacha Dalet, that's on page 92. I'm first going to read for you the Shulchan Aruch. Again, we're not going to go. Remember, Rabotai, when you're learning with me, because I'm really learning with you also, when we're learning together, you have to remember, whenever I read the Shulchan Aruch on top, it's one thing to read the Shulchan Aruch, but it's another thing to dissect the Shulchan Aruch and to get a better understanding. Okay, so just bear with me, okay? Just understand that it's not just one, that's it, one. After you know all the details, and then you can learn the Shulchan Aruch, when you're going to say the halachas, you'll see, automatically, everything's going to, subconscious is going to be in your brain, so everything's going to come back out. As you say one thing, you're going to remember everything. That's how you do Chazara. In any event, in Siman Reish Ein Aleph, that's 271. Halacha Dalet, that's Halacha 4. The Shulchan Aruch says, Asur lit'om klum kodem sheikadesh. It is forbidden for a person to taste anything until he does kiddush. Afilu mayim, even water. Rabotai, he's not allowed to taste even water. That means, once sunset falls, it's forbidden for a person to eat anything, drink anything, even water. We say by Kiddush, by Shabbat, by Friday night, we are much more stringent than by Moti Shabbat. Because by Moti Shabbat, we tell you allowed to drink water. By Kiddush, we're not going to even allow you to go ahead and drink water. Now, I'm not going to go through the whole halacha. I just want to stick to what Rabbi Dahan wants, where he wanted to send us. If we look into Siv Katan Yud Aleph in the Mishnah Berurah, the Mishnah Berurah says Asur lit'om, v'zehu rak isur d'Rabbanan. This is only a prohibition from the rabbis. Ve'atam, the reason why the rabbis forbade us to have anything before we do kiddush, keva d'chiyuv shel hakiddush chal alav miyad b'kiniset Shabbat, v'afilu lo kibel alav Shabbat behedya. Even though the reason is like this. Kevin, since the chiyuv shel kiddush chal alav miyad, since the obligation of kiddush fell on you immediately, bikinisat Shabbat, by one Shabbat came in, meaning right by sunset. Even though you didn't openly say you want to accept Shabbat, the since it becomes to us, it's down to us if it's night or day. Meaning, since it's twilight, Mimela Chal Alav Shabbat. By itself, Shabbat falls on you, like it or not. Right? We know that Easter Doraita L'Chumra. Whenever we have a Safik Doraita, we go L'Chumra. Right now you have a Safik, is it day or is it night? You don't know what this is. So we're going to go L'Chumra, we're going to tell you it's Asur. That's why Kiddush falls on you. V'im Kibal Alav Shabbat, listen to this, but if he accepted upon himself Shabbat, V'afil Adan Yom Gadol, even if it's still day outside, Dina Hachi. The halacha is going to be exactly the same halacha. This is what the Mishnah Berurah is bringing down. That if a person went ahead and accepted at 5:01 on Friday night, not on Friday towards the evening, before Shabbat, Shabbat is at 6 o'clock. He accepted upon himself Shabbat at 5:01, like the Prima Gada was saying before. Automatically, he says the halacha is going to be the same thing. You're not allowed to eat, drink, even water until you do Kiddush. Now, I want to make something clear. A lot of people have a very big misconception. What does it mean, Kiddush? So I want to show you over here. Whenever we say Kiddush, Kiddush does not mean the Yom HaShishi and the Savri Maran B'Ripre Geffen. Whenever we say Kiddush falls on you, it's this right over here. You guys see it? When we say Yom HaShishi V'Yichol HaShamayim, we'll see that's why some people stand. If you see Yom HaShishi V'Yichol HaShamayim, you have Yud Kei Vav Kei, you have Hashem's name, that's where they stand. Okay. But we say Yom HaShishi, but this is not the Kiddush that we want to say. And then we say B'rei Geffen. The reason why you say B'rei Geffen is because you have to taste. But you can't taste without first saying a bracha. That's why we say B'rei Geffen. But it's still not Kiddush. Kiddush is actually this bracha. Baruch Ata Hashem Elokeinu Melech Olam, Asher Kiddishanu b'mitzvot v'retabanu, v'Shabbat Kedusho b'Ahava v'Rtzon Hinich Lanu, Zikaro l'Maseh Bereshit, Tichila l'Miknei Kodesh, Zecher l'Yetziat Mitzrayim, v'Shabbat Kedusho b'Ahava v'Rtzon Hinich Latanu, Baruch Ata Hashem Mekadesh Hashem. That's Kiddush, Rabotai. This is real Kiddush. So now you have to understand, whenever we say over here that the Kiddush falls on you, we're saying that that bracha falls on you to say it. We usually do it on a cup of wine, but for persons that have wine, as we'll see as we go along, you can also do it on bread. Now, Rabotai, so this is the Pesach of the Shulchan Aruch. The Shulchan Aruch says it's forbidden for a person to taste anything before Kiddush, even water. And we saw the Mishnah Berurah says, why? Because once sunset hits, it's Savak HaShecha, it's Ben HaShmashot. We have a doubt, we have a suffix doubt. When you have a suffix, when you have a suffix d'oraita, when you have a doubt which is from the Torah, we're going to be l'chumah. We don't know if it's day or night. If you're going to say it's day, good, you're allowed to go ahead and do whatever you want. But what happens if it's bemed, ben hashmashot is night? You just shot yourself in the leg. That's when we don't want to play games. But the Mishnah Berurah continues and he says, even if you accept upon yourself Shabbat after 5 o'clock, which is Plag HaMincha, why do I always keep on saying Plag HaMincha? Is because before that you were not allowed to accept Shabbat. It's too distant away from Shabbat. Anyway, that's for some other time. But we see over here that if a person went ahead and accept upon himself Shabbat, even though it's still outside, light, the sun is still shining bright, we're going to tell you you're not allowed to go ahead and eat, drink, or even have water until you do Kiddush on Friday night. Rabotai, this is the opinion of the Mishnah Berurah. But listen to this. In Amodei Hora'ah, this is why we came over here. In Yud Aleph, he says, V'chel pasak b'Rav Chaim. So too the Rav Chaim made this pasak. In Sivkat Nechav Aleph, she'im kibel Shabbat, if a person accepted upon himself Shabbat, or higiya zman ben hashmashot. Two things. Either you accepted upon yourself Shabbat after Plag HaMincha, you wanted to take Shabbat in earlier, or the zman, the time of twilight came, meaning after sunset, asur lit'om ad shikadesh. It is forbidden for you to taste anything until you do Kiddush. V'cheru be'ben ishchai, so too is brought down in the Ben Ishchai, Shana Shniya, that's the second year, Bereshit, Pasha Bereshit, Halacha Yuzayin, Le'inyan Ben Hashmashot, when it comes to the situation of Ben Hashmashot, that once Ben Hashmashot comes, the Ben Ishchai says also, like the Mishnah Berurah, which we're understanding that in the Shulchan Aruch, a person is not allowed to eat or drink or even have water until he does Kiddush. Aval, Rabotai, however, we have the opinion of Chacham Ovadia Zatzal. Today is Yosef, by the way, wow. Aval dat Chazon Ovadia. But however, the opinion of Chazon Ovadia, if you look, take his book, Chazon Ovadia, in Chelek of Shabbat, Chelek Aleph, Amud Reish Chav Aleph, Shebimokum Toirich. Listen again, I want you to see the language. People think Chacham Ovadia gives you leniency. No. Rabotai, Chacham Ovadia says, 100% I will always go to Shulchan Aruch. Again, we have, sometimes we're different, but he lightened up the world with Maran Beit Yosef. But look at the language that he's adding. He says, B'makom Toirich. The Shulchan Aruch, we don't know the exact situation what the Shulchan Aruch is speaking about. A regular situation, the Halacha is like the Shulchan Aruch. But comes Chacham Ovadia, Rabbi Dahan is bringing down over here, he says, Sheb'makom Toirich. But if there's a real need, mutar l'shtot mayim, you're allowed to drink water, or tea, or tea, or cafe, or coffee, afilu im kibel Shabbat b'amir da'yechid, or b'hadlakat haner. Kol od shelo yitpalal arvit shel Shabbat, as long as you did not still daven arvit of Shabbat. Rabotai, listen to this carefully. If a person accepts upon himself after 5:01, after Plag Mincha, accept upon himself Shabbat, or the wife lit the candle and she said, with this I want to accept Shabbat, I want to have a more meaningful Shabbat, I want to add more time to Shabbat. Beautiful. Now all of a sudden she's thirsty, she really needs to drink. She went out for a walk with the kids, or the husband, he went to shul. Whatever, there's a need. It's necessary. Everybody has to know what the need is. Chacham, it says good, as long as you did not daven Arvit Shel Shabbat, you're allowed to go ahead and have water, tea, and coffee. Not like when we said before that if a person accepted upon himself, he's not allowed to even have water. He says, like it's brought down in the Chacham footnote over there. But pay close attention. All this right now we're speaking about, he says, Kol od shaloi palal arvit. As long as he didn't daven arvit. V'katav Yalkut Yosef Mahadur Bet Amot Shin Yud Zayin. The Yalkut Yosef writes in his sefer, Sheyesh la'akel bezeh afilu kvar sheka'ah hachama kozman ben hashmashot. He says a person can even take a step further. A person didn't accept Shabbat. He didn't accept Shabbat after Plag Mincha. Why have to accept Shabbat by Plag Mincha? I'm not ready. I want to accept Shabbat when Shabbat comes at 6 o'clock. Or at 5:48, whatever, 5:42, whatever it is. Let's say 6 o'clock. I'll tell you why, because we're using Ben Hashmashot. So comes Rav Yitzchak Yosef Shlitani says, a person can be even lenient if there's a need. If already the sun set and you are in the 15 minutes of twilight, you're allowed to use that space, that gap. So Rav Dahan writes over here in parentheses, he says, even though if you look into Chazon Avadia, Chacham Avadia himself gave this leniency of being able to drink water, tea, and coffee. That was as long as you did. I'm sorry, one more time. This leniency that Chacham Avadia gave us when it came with water, tea, and coffee, that's as long as the sun did not set yet, and you have accepted Shabbat after Plag Mincha, and you didn't daven Arvit yet. But all that is before sunset. So it would imply that according to Chacham Avadia, that once sun already set, which is the time of Ben Hashmashot, even though a person didn't daven Arvit, and he didn't accept upon himself Shabbat because you don't need to, the Shabbat takes effect immediately on you. You would have thought in the opinion of Chacham Avadia, it would be asur for you to drink anything until you do Kiddush. So he says over here, Afilohachi, even in such a scenario, even though he used that language, saying that as long as sunset still didn't come, Afilohachi, even so, in such a situation, Yesh Lomar, one can say, Delo nachid ladun ela be'oven ha'pashut yuter. Chacham Avadia wanted to speak about the most simple case. He was speaking about the most simple case, that a person went ahead and he accepted upon himself Shabbat after Plag Mincha, and still sun didn't set. If there's a need for it, he has to be lenient, whatever the situation might be. Chacham Avadia is going to tell you, let's go ahead and drink your water, tea, and coffee. But he never spoke about Ben Hashmashot. He says, nevertheless, Rabotai, you could say, Chacham Avadia did not need to speak about Ben Hashmashot. Why? Because he took the most easiest case. He says, "Ve'en hachinam," and it's true. The ben hashmashot nami yesh lahakel. He says also one could go ahead and be lenient according to Chacham Avadia, even in twilight. So Rabotai, we have over here. Let's just do a small review before we wrap up over here for today. Bezrat Hashem b'li neder. We saw today this whole halacha of davening Arvit after Plag Mincha, or accepting upon yourself Shabbat after Plag Mincha. So we started with this whole thing with the Pri Megadim. The Pri Megadim wanted to say that you cannot compare the Kiddush with the Havdalah. You can't compare the two. Because by Kiddush, when a person accepts upon himself Shabbat after Plag Mincha, when it's still early in the day, good, the day changes. It's really Shabbat. It's forbidden for you to work, therefore you're not allowed to eat or drink anything until you do Kiddush. However, when you deal with Havdalah, when it comes to Saturday after 5 p.m. after Plag Mincha and you daven Arvit, even if you did Havdalah in your Shomra Esrei, did the day change? Are you allowed to work? Absolutely not. So therefore it's still Shabbat by you. So therefore the Pri Megadim wants to say you are allowed to go ahead and eat. But we saw Rabotai Halacha is like the Magen Ram, that if a person went ahead and he davened Arvit after Plag Mincha on Shabbat, he's not allowed to eat or drink anything until he does Havdalah and a cup of wine after Motzei Shabbat. But from there we came to Siman Reish Ayin Aleph. In Halacha Dal, where we clearly see the Shulchan Aruch says, it is forbidden for a person to taste anything before he does Kiddush, even water. And we saw the Mishnah Berurah said, either the case could be speaking about Shabbat came by itself, meaning it's sunset, automatically Shabbat comes in, you don't have a say in it, automatically you have to stop eating and drinking, even water. We saw in the Shulchan Aruch. And the Mishnah Berurah added that even if you wanted to take upon Shabbat earlier, an hour earlier, after 5 o'clock, we're going to tell you what? According to the Mishnah Berurah, you're not allowed to taste, eat, or drink anything until you do Kiddush on a cup of wine, like we saw in the Pri Megadim in Siman Reish Tzadik Tet. Right, in Siman Reish Tzadik Tet, that's 299. From 271 to 299. Fine. We saw who went like the Mishnah Berurah. The Rav Chaim said, whether you accepted Shabbat upon yourself early, or whether sun set, where over there you do not need to accept Shabbat, because automatically Shabbat falls on you, it takes effect immediately. The Rav Chaim says it's asur to eat, drink, even water, until you do Kiddush and a cup of wine. The Ben Ish Chai also said once Ben Hashmashot comes in, you're not allowed to have anything, even water, until you do Kiddush. But we did see two important leniencies. One, according to Chacham Ovadia, that he says that as long as a person accepted Shabbat after Plag Mincha, but he did not daven Arvit, he didn't daven the Shemona Esrei prayer of Shabbat, Chacham Ovadia says if there is a real need, a great need for him to drink, he's allowed to be lenient up until sunset. He can drink water, tea, or coffee. However, we saw Rabbi Dahan bring Rav Yitzchak Yosef Shlita and say that even he's allowed to extend it even into the 15 minutes. That means this case is completely different. What happens if a person didn't accept Shabbat early after Plag Mincha? He didn't know. Shabbat fell on him immediately. At 6 o'clock, Shabbat came in. He's walking to shul. Right, he didn't take Shabbat, but it's already Shabbat. He's walking to shul now. He gets thirsty, whatever it is. It's too hot. Or he's the chazan and he needs to drink. Rav Yitzchak Yosef Shlita is going to tell you, you have those extra 15 minutes to go ahead and drink water, coffee, or tea, whatever you want. You're allowed to go ahead and be lenient. But then we said, how come Chacham Ovadia didn't say it? That Chacham Ovadia didn't say it. You have to say that Chacham Ovadia also meant the same thing. It's just Chacham Ovadia took the most simpler case